Hi, everybody. My name is Joseph Tomchuk, and I'm here today to tell you a little bit more about Moneyball, The Art of Winning an Unfair Game by Michael Lewis. So a little bit about Michael Lewis. He's a best-selling nonfiction author and journalist. He's famous for several works, a couple sports novels, including Moneyball and The Blind Side, as well as others such as Flash Boys. Michael Lewis received his MA in economics from the London School of Economics. And this kind of, his understanding of finances and markets kind of are his source material for a lot of his novels, and that those understandings made him the perfect author for the story of Moneyball. So dive right into it. The main character of the story is Billy Beane. For those who don't know Billy Beane, he's currently the general manager of the Oakland Athletics. But, Lewis starts out his story by, 20 years earlier in the future when he was drafted first round by the New York Mets. Billy was deciding between going to Stanford or going straight into play professional baseball. And the Mets, persuaded him to join the Mets right away. And Billy would tell you that this is kind of the first and last decision he ever made based purely off of money, because the MLB didn't work out for Billy, and he kind of regrets not going to Stanford, but he got into scouting, and then he joined the A's as a general manager. So kind of the main idea of the story is not necessarily about Billy Beane and the Oakland A's, but it's the introduction of an idea, and that is sabermetrics. Sabermetrics is the use of advanced stats to find processes that result in winning games. It was coined by Bill James, a baseball historian and statistician. And really the goal of sabermetrics was to find a way to win games, or in the terms for baseball, was to who can score the most runs for the lowest cost. So back to the A's, kind of the main problem was that they were getting gutted by other teams in free agency. The Oakland A's had historically been a small budget team, a historically tight payroll. So after the year of 2001, after Billy Beane led the A's to kind of back-to-back postseason bursts with regular season win totals of 91 and 102, things were looking good in the future, or so the fans thought. But then Johnny Damon, Jason Giambi, Jason Isringhausen, three of their core players all gone. Jason Giambi was 2000 MLB MVP, gone, signed for $120 million with the Yankees. Johnny Damon had some MVP votes. He was gone with the Red Sox. Isringhausen, all-star closer, gone to the Cardinals. So how do you replace those guys? So that's where Billy Beane and the idea of sabermetrics came in, along with his assistant GM, Paul DePodesta. They kind of were going in trying to find cheaper guys who could replace those guys. But how do you replace those guys? By looking at the advanced stats, they came to the conclusion that they needed to replace their on-base percentage. They needed to find guys who could get on base. So that's what they came up with this list of guys, or as Michael Lewis considers the island of misfits. David Justice, he was an aging star in decline, who the Yankees were still paying part of his salary to trade him away to the A's. Scott Hatterberg was an injured catcher, couldn't even throw the baseball anymore. So the A's taught him to play first base. Jeremy Giambi was considered too fat to play in the MLB, but the A's gave him a shot. Chad Bradford was told he could throw too weird to play. He threw too weird to play in the MLB. You know what all these guys had in common? They got on base. They drew their walks. They had good plate discipline. And Chad Bradford, he kept guys off base. He threw strikes, didn't walk too many guys. So they kind of helped the A's get to where they needed to be. They were cheap guys that got the A's to win games. And there were more players than just these guys. And Billy Beane made plenty of other moves, including the acquisition of Ricardo Rincon and Ray Durham. It wasn't just these guys, but these guys made the story of Moneyball possible. And kind of the end result, like I said earlier, the story's not about the A's. It's about the implementation of an idea of sabermetrics. The A's won the division in 2002, but they ended up losing in the first round. But other teams started to build off of Billy Beane's idea. The Boston Red Sox, they actually hired Bill James in the early 2000s, the guy who coined sabermetrics. Then they hired Theo Epstein, who at the time was the youngest GM in the history of Major League Baseball, kind of follow in Billy's footsteps and lead the charge of using advanced stats to find ways to win baseball games. And the Red Sox ended up winning the World Series in 2004, ending their 86-year-long championship drought. And in fact, Billy Beane is still chasing that championship with the A's. He's still there, still searching. The A's are a very good baseball team year in and year out. They find ways to be competitive while historically maintaining their historically low payrolls. So some of the kind of the key concepts, seen throughout Moneyball have many takeaways, kind of the sport and recreation management industry as well as universally. And one of those is that, money doesn't necessarily buy wins or doesn't necessarily buy happiness. There are other ways to succeed. There are other ways to be happy. You don't need money. And that's what Billy Beane taught. I mean, and, by looking at, when you're looking at finances and economics as well, you don't need to pay $100 million for a player when you could fill multiple holes for the same amount of money. Kind of brings in the idea of kind of opportunity costs. What are you giving up when you're paying so much money? And you could take it back to, the real world. It's like when you go get your car washed, would you rather get a $40 car wash and have your car look spotless, or go to the place across the street and get a pretty good car wash for, $20 and have an extra $20 to spend? I mean, it's just different ways of looking at it. And another key takeaway is that there's always different ways of doing something. You have to always look for ways to improve. Like the story of Moneyball, Billy saw that his scouting department, his player development was not good. They needed a new way of looking at things. So in came sabermetrics. And you can take this back to sport and recreation management as well as kind of university worldwide. There's always a better way of doing something. And you always have to be looking out for what that is and trying to find what that is. Don't get comfortable in the status quo. Always try to improve. Improve in general or improve processes. So that kind of leads me to it's hard not to be romantic about baseball. At the end of the day, I would recommend this story to anybody, especially those who love baseball. It's a fantastic story. There's plenty of good anecdotes in there that just, make you think back to the early 2000 baseball teams. I mean, it's a really fun read, and you can learn a lot from it. I would highly recommend reading this book.